Hello everybody. Today in my video, I would like to explain to you a different approach or philosophy, if you will, of continue on in these solo vlogging videos for the people that follow me or that listen to my videos. Doing vlogs on COVID is getting tiresome for me. Not only because of the time I waste on research and reading expert opinion, but because I'm really getting fed up, like most I suppose, of this issue monopolizing all of our attention. I know the virus is real, okay? And very dangerous to certain people. I also know that this virus, because of this virus, there are a lot of important questions to be answered about the management of this pandemic by our elected officials. When I decided to start doing commentary on societal and cultural issues and interviews with figures from our communities, I wanted to keep partisan politics away from it because of the polarizing aspect of partisan politics. In a time where society is getting more and more divided, we need to talk more about issues that unite us, not divide us. When talking about complex issues like this pandemic, where nothing is black or white, it becomes difficult because everyone is camped on their sides and most have already made up their minds on this issue. You all know my opinion on the lockdowns. I don't think work on based on scientific studies, empirical data, and expert opinion that I have read. They are the best approach to fight. That the lockdowns are the best approach to fight this pandemic. I also think we have to learn to deal with this virus because on this issue, most experts agree this virus is here to stay in a seasonal fashion. So from now on, I won't be making any more videos on the virus itself. I will try to talk about more broader subjects and issues and policy that have a bigger societal consensus. Like, for example, the effectiveness of our healthcare system, like, for example, the fact that we can all agree on, at least I hope, that there are a lot of problems in our healthcare system that we need to work on and improve. Another example could be the importance of civil liberties, especially free speech. Because when it comes to government taking away our civil liberties temporarily, history shows us that most of the time, most of these measures stay permanently. We must go back to the place where we could have respectful conversations without getting emotional and conflictual. In a society, we must be able to talk to each other, because if we don't, we will just continue living in an ideological bubble, or echo chamber, if you will, that will just bring us deeper inside the rabbit hole, and it will be even more difficult to climb out of. Traditional media, politicians, and political activists have come to the understanding that having a divided society serves them well. So instead of getting us to talk about issues that we could all agree on, which there is a lot, but I know it doesn't feel that way, they find the ones that deepen the divide. Like, for example, they like to report on politicians instead of the policies they enact, or on the race of a suspect instead of reporting on the crime itself. And I could go on like this, but you get the picture. I'll give you a few examples, concrete examples. Like in the Toronto Star of January 15th, they reported on an organization that wasn't yet eligible for a government program because they haven't filled up sufficient applications and paperwork to show that they are eligible. You know how they framed that news? Well, the headline goes as follows. Ottawa tells hundreds of applicants they are not black enough for money for the Black Community Initiative. So basically what they did there is they framed it as a racial discrimination issue when this is not the case. This is a bureaucracy issue. Because when endless paperwork and approval by bureaucrats sitting in their ivory towers or government buildings is the problem, not the program itself. Why they did this, you ask? Because that way, some people will see it as further proof that they are being oppressed, and others will see it as a portion of the population being favored based on the color of their skin. Here's another example of framing a news story along divisive lines. In Le Devoir from December 24, 2020, they report on a letter written by civil rights lawyers, including Julius Gray, that has fought for civil rights of all people throughout his career. Intellectuals and also McGill professors, reaffirming the importance of freedom of expression, diversity, and freedom of thought and teaching. in that university, and that said university's response to that letter. Should be pretty simple reporting, right? Well, that's not the road they chose. Instead, they chose to frame it as a racial hate and discrimination issue. The headline reads, "Diversity or Discrimination, the Universal Case of McGill." End of quote. And further in the article, they write, open quote, "But it is not, for although this policy may seem flawless, this is only in theory. In practice, the reality is quite different, because beneath this supposed diversity, the very one that seems to oppose freedom of education, as Julius Gray points out, hide hatred, racism, and discrimination. This is where it all has a very real impact on all Quebecers," end of quote. So, in a letter that some people sent to McGill to talk and to say that there must be diversity in the universities and freedom of thought and freedom of expression and freedom of the teachers to teach the way they please, yes. Well, but it is not. Okay? Because all this is to push the dangerous and divisive critical race theory that there is racism everywhere, even when it is not there. Because in that school of thought, the definition of social justice is that all minorities are de facto oppressed. This only deepens the divide and further polarizes the population to the margins. Sometimes it is not even just framing a story along divisive lines. Sometimes it's just plain turning a totally non-divisive issue and making it about oppressor versus the oppressed narrative. Like in this article that appeared in Vice January 18, 2017, titled "How to Decolonize Your Thanksgiving Dinner." Okay, now let me read a bit of the article. It goes as follows, okay? So here it goes. Starts off, "We reached out to Chef Neppy Gregg, a member of the White Mountain Apache tribe. It starts with identifying foods that are indigenous to Americas and asking yourself, what do these ingredients mean to me?" It continues, if your favorite meats, legumes, vegetables, and fruits could talk to you this Thanksgiving, they would probably tell you about the historical traumas that they've endured as they traveled and evolved through the old world, new world, and finally as components in your favorite dish. So side note here, apparently foods suffer historical traumas. But anyways, I continue. "Welcome to the world of decolonial cuisine, a culinary movement with the goal of getting people with indigenous roots to honor their heritage through their dietary choices. In addition, the movement aims to simply allow people to become more conscious of where their food comes from and how it got there. The cuisine is not unlike Hawaii's pre-contact movement, which focuses on cooking Hawaiian food using only foods that were native to the islands before Captain Cook dropped anchor there in 1778. Decolonizing your diet means something different for every person, since it depends on the individual's personal heritage and identifying the foods that are original to your ancestors. For example, for a Mexican American, that may mean adhering to a diet of corn, tomatoes, cacao, spirulina, avocado, and other foods that are indigenous to Mexico. Munchies reached out to Chef Neppy Gregg, a half Navajo member of the White Mountain Apache tribe of the White River, Arizona. To get a deeper understanding of this complex movement, he is a pioneer of decolonizing diets and has talked about the importance of Native American foods around the world. He is also the founder of the Native American Culinary Association and writes for the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. and the Center for American Indian Elderly about the current state of Native American culinary traditions affected by hunting, fishing, and agricultural rights. It is definitely safe to say that for Craig, the subject of Native American cuisine and decolonization is more a way of life than just a way to eat. So basically, what they're trying to say here, and the chef goes on to say in the interview, he refuses to call Thanksgiving by its name. Okay, he calls it, he refuses to call it Thanksgiving, because he calls it Indigenous Foods Day. Because for the adherents of intersectionality, everything is a discrimination against someone, even the food you eat. Basically, the food you eat decides if you're racist or not. Or I don't know, maybe the food is racist itself. Anyways, I digress. Before I conclude this video, I'd just like to talk to you about a video I found this morning. Not a video, sorry, an article I found this morning in the Daily Mail from yesterday, January 19th. Okay? I'll just read you the headline and then give you my opinion on what the article is about. White is a state of mind. NYU professor Islam for claiming black and Latino voters who supported Trump have multiracial whiteness, and that it was unsettling so many of them voted for him. So basically, what they're saying is, how they're framing this is basically, if you are Latino, or as they call it, brown, or African American, black, you cannot no longer be identified as those things, even though you are born with those things. It's a hardware issue, not a software issue. They say, okay, that black people should vote the way white progressives want you to vote. And in my opinion, that is one of the most racist things I've heard, at least in the last year. But anyways, I digress. Because in conclusion, what I'm trying to say is, why don't we focus on common ground that holds us together instead of keeping on hammering on the stuff that divides us? We are all human beings with our flaws and qualities that make us who we are. There is so much that brings us together. Even though, there's a lot that brings us together and that can unify us. But malintentioned people keep manipulating us to believe we are fighting each other, even if it's over the most banal issues. Love will always trump hate. So talk with people with different opinions. Do it respectfully. And find common ground to stand on. Because like they say, united we stand, divided we fall. With respect to all, one love. See you soon.